There are a few games that I remember from back when I was a kid that were based off of comics. Some of these include Spawn, The Tick, Spider-Man, X-Men, Arcade's Revenge, and Biker Mice from Mars. I remember them being decent for the most part, but in hindsight, most of them weren't very good. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of them that I remember the most. The first one we got is Todd McFarlane's Spawn, the video game for the SNES. The development is kind of intriguing. It was developed by Yuki Toy, published by Acclaim, and released in October of 1995. We all know who Acclaim is by now. They're a shovelware development and publishing company. They could barely get one game right that wasn't a port, never mind pick out games to publish that were total garbage. Yuki Yote is a little bit more intriguing kind of history. They're a Japan-based development team that was founded in 1991 by Kenshi Naruse, who was a former Capcom employee. Sadly, they didn't last that long. They were defunct in the mid-90s, and a lot of their games were Japan only in that time. So their library includes games such as Metal Slug First and Second Mission for the Neo Geo Pocket, which was Japan only, Bust a Move Again for the Sega Saturn, Camp Fighters 97 for the PlayStation 1, Hook for the SNES, Samurai Showdown 3 for the PlayStation 1, and Sky Blazer for the SNES. So if this and Hook for the SNES were any indication of how good they were, I think they would have been better off just porting games, because, let's be honest, Hook was an okay game at best, and Spawn is probably the best game based off a franchise that never really had a really good game. Moving on, let's jump into the story. I couldn't remember much of the story, so here's what I got from research. According to Wikipedia, you play as Al Simmons, an undead being. Al used to work as an agent for the government that was betrayed and murdered by one of his own. Long after his wife, a deal was made with the Lord of Darkness named Malbogia to make Al return from the dead and thus become Malbogia's spawn. In the deal, Al would get access to infinite powers. Unfortunately, the powers, though infinite in force, were limited in supply. If Al's powers are used to their full extent, his soul will belong to Malbogia, and Al will do Malbogia's bidding for all time to come. In present time, a renegade crusader named the Mad One has kidnapped 13 innocent children, including Al's stepdaughter, and locked their souls in a magical orb called the Orb of Purity. Mad One's long-term goal is to make use of the Orb of Purity to destroy Malbogia once and for all, and he has already entered the area where Malbogia resides. Al Simmons now must stop the Mad One in order to save his daughter, the other children, and himself. Pretty typical considering how dark the comics were. The graphics are good. They're a good representation of the comic. It's a dark, gritty, and, in general, a really scary looking game. The animations are also great. Every attack looks fluid, impactful, and overall just feels like you're smashing guys left, right, and center. The cinematics or still frames are also well done. Sure, there's no real animation, but they feel like they're pulled right from the pages of an issue of Todd McFarlane's Spawn. There's really nothing bad I can say about the graphics. Levels are varied from place to place. The game has you run around for long enough, then throws you into the next area. My only problem is that because of the nature of the game, the enemies can get repetitive. There's only around 2 to 3 enemies per section of the game, and you'll fight them a lot. Then again, I could give it a pass because how much detail there is, considering it's an SNES game from 1995. The audio is also well done. There's a lot of bass in the tracks, and they're thematically appropriate. The street levels have more of a gloomy vibe, while the tracks that play while you're making your way into hell have more of a demonic tone to them. The sound effects are also well done. Every hit sounds impactful and makes you feel like at times like you're unstoppable. Very well done, guys. The gameplay is bad. Seriously, this game is one of the stiffest 2D action platform games I've ever played. Ranks among the likes of Naruto Ninja Castle 2 for the stiffest controlling game. The game is fundamentally like any other action platform game at the time. You run around from point A to point B, killing enemies, pick up items, and eventually fighting bosses. You have a variety of moves at your disposal, including jump kicks, slides, and so forth. The game also features a unique form of lives. Since Spawn is a servant of the devil, you get a meter that drains if you lose all your health, fall off platforms, or use special powers. If the meter runs out, then you're dead. As for moves, I haven't pulled off any of the special moves since elementary school, and don't use them much since your standard barrage of attacks are just as effective. There's not a lot I can say that's good gameplay-wise, so I'll try. The first is that you really feel like a walking death machine. Most enemies drop from 1 or 2 hits, and when enemies die in 1 or 2 hits, it further increases that feeling that you're almost unstoppable. The next is that the gameplay fundamentally works. Controls aren't the worst in the world. Running around is done easy enough, and you die more often than not for being dumb rather than the game being dickish. Where it gets it wrong is the fundamentals. There's too many frames of animation, and doing anything in the game is a chore. From killing enemies to jumping, this game feels stiff and will get you killed more often than not. This can make the game extremely frustrating, and to some not worth figuring out the controls. My next problem is that the hit detection is really suspect. Attacks that should be hits aren't misses, and so forth. This can be a problem when half the game has you beating up baddies. My last problem is that the game is short and repetitive. After you play past the first boss, you've seen everything. Levels might change, but you're doing the same things over and over again. This is made worse when you realize there's no combos at all. You can't do like 2 kicks that punch. This turns what would be a great game into a battle of attrition. Also, even if you could do combos, I feel that the before mentioned stiff controls would manage to screw that up and you would get locked into combos that you didn't want. Now, this is kind of counterbalanced by how short the game is. If you have any experience with the game or action platform style games at the time, you can finish it in around 1 to 2 hours, with the average gamer finishing it in around 3 hours. This is a slight relief, but I feel that most gamers would give up long before finishing it. Overall, Todd McFarlane's Spawn the video game is a passable game at best. I give it a pass because when has there ever been a good Spawn game? I played the Xbox game Spawn Armageddon, but that was yet another passable game at best and hasn't aged well at all. If you like Spawn and need something new or new game, then either keep reading the comics or go play the Xbox version of Soul Calibur 2. This is yet another shovelware game to a cool character, and it's a shame that his best appearance was as a playable character in another series. I give it 5 out of 10. If Spawn wasn't so cool, then I would probably give it like a 3 out of 10.